I'm Angela. This is the Dinosaur Omelet.
I'm waddling over.
Coming around to
I'm
join.
waddling in. Hi guys, welcome in. Yes, Dinosaur Omelet. Christopher here. Angela. She didn't want me to leave her alone. Hi guys, welcome in. Yes, tonight we're talking about the growth curve of our domestic birds. Its origin of the red jungle fowl in Indonesia, and how that has affecting us as homesteaders. Sorry. How that actually affects us and applicable knowledge we can use. And I mean, so I'm going to ask, is there practical knowledge in any of this? So anytime you're gaining information, you're going to gain insight into your own animals. Can I change this window? It's kind of loud.
Sure.
So anytime you gain information, like any new information, it may seem kind of like, how am I supposed to use this? But it becomes pretty observable and useful later in your own animal rearing.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's what we're talking tonight.
Yeah, it's important to understand the animals that you're keeping and raising, and what strengths and weaknesses they have, and how they're made and function.
Correct. And it's actually really cool. You guys, you go to the store and you see these, what are they, rotisserie chickens, and tons of them. So what's happened with the breeding and growth of broilers from the 1950s, post-World War II to today, is really actually phenomenal, where they're optimizing these creatures. I mean, people bring up the ethics of it all, and we'll talk about that. But we have this meat production at a very industrial scale. I don't eat that stuff, to be transparently.
Why would you say that?
The large feedlot animals?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. We raise broilers here, and we do eat them, but I stay away from store food, and I stay away from processed food, and I stay away from large factory farm animals, simply because of the feed they're eating. It changes the molecular composition of their meat, of their body, particularly the omega-6 fat concentration, which can become, inflammatory. I don't want to talk too much about that. The antibiotics and...
You are what you eat, so the animals are not necessarily cared for in the best way, and what they eat, it doesn't really promote their health. It gets the job done in growing them to processing age or weight, but if you're able to raise your own animals or purchase healthy meats from nearby farms and homesteads, then you're going to have a healthy type of meat. We definitely encourage people eating meat.
Yeah, very cool. And I guess we'll start actually talking about this but only a second. New people, if you're new here, check out the description. I got some cool stuff down there. How to raise quail, 50 or 25 simple questions. How much does it cost? $19.95? $9.95? No, it's free. You just click on the link. I don't even want your freaking email address. Just click on the link, and you'll get a free How to Raise Quail PDF, so you don't have to be scared to try to raise these animals. Why am I telling you that? We raise quail. A lot of you guys, so Angela raises, what do you call these things?
The jumbo.
Silky chickens.
I thought you were just talking about the quail.
Raises silkies commercially, so she sells the silky. And we also raise jumbo quail, which we sell locally. And they're really phenomenal egg layers, domesticated japonicas or Coturnix quail. They're really phenomenal egg layers. Free, $99. Yeah, it's totally free. One time, it's always the same offer. Actually, and two, at one of the first links I put in this video in the description, it applies to this video that we're discussing, which is going to be a feed conversion chart. What's a feed conversion chart? Well, you know what? Let's start the video. I'm going to tell you what is a feed conversion chart, what's feed conversion ratio. Bum, bum, bum. I take notes, and I like to read from my notes. And then we'll talk about the stuff you read, the main thing. So, to get you guys interested in this subject, we all realize, or at least we should realize, chickens that were commercially available in the 1950s, well, they were tiny, like the meat chickens you go to the grocery store.
Known as the heritage breeds.
Yeah. Well, they were broilers, but they weren't big like they are now. And they were heritage breeds.
Heritage. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we were starting to breed them. Anyway, they were smaller chickens. And they were weighing about 2 to 3 pounds. So at butcher weight, these animals were only like 3 pounds.
Pretty tiny.
At a grocery, at your local grocery. Well, things are different. Post World War II.
Right.
And they had a feed conversion rate for those animals of 3 to 1. What is that? So feed conversion rate, this is something you should pay attention to in raising your own animals, especially if you're doing meat. And this is actually applying to meat, because what you're doing is how much feed does it take to gain 1 pound of live animal weight? So back in the 50s, the feed conversion ratio was about 3 pounds to 1 pound. So 3 to 1. There was about 3 pounds of feed to get 1 pound of living chicken. Today it's half that. Through selective breeding and processes, it's about 1.5 pounds of feed to get a pound of chicken. Did we measure how much we were feeding them to figure out exactly what?
No,
Well,
the way I do our animals is I monitor what they eat daily, and how long it takes them to complete, eating the serving that I gave them, and then I adjust as needed, even if it's a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, and Angela was feeding them. You also gave them, what do you call it? Fermented feed.
Yes. It depends on the different groups I did that. But I did with a mash food, it's like a crushed green. I would also add water to make it easier for them to consume all of it, and then also help even hydrating them as well.
Indeed. So yeah, back in the 50s, man, these chickens were small. They're getting to market at 3 to 4 months. So it took 3 to 4 months to grow this 3-pound bird. So commercially not extremely viable compared to what we have today.
But even heritage breeds today, these same breeds that they've worked on all these years, the ones that would be used for meat and eggs, they're like 5 months when the roosters, so it's still
start crowing.
It's when it's like 22 weeks, 18 to 22 weeks is when you process them usually. Yeah. It just depends on the breed, but the Australorps, for example.
And we're going to talk about the pros and cons of both of those. Like the heritage breeds are definitely very, very useful, applicable.
Yeah.
I mean,
very
I won't
different.
get into that. So back in the 50s, we had about a 3 to 1 feed ratio rate for a 2 to 3 pound bird at 4 months of age, 3 to 4 months of age. Today, I'm skipping some decades, but I'll get back to them. Today, a bird is, like I said, 1.5 pounds to about 1 pound of meat. So they're eating 1.5 pounds of feed to 1 pound of meat. And they're butcher ready at 6 weeks. So 1.5 months at about 7 pounds. So there was a 300% increase in the animal efficiency. So 3x the efficiency or output of these animals through selective breeding from the 1950s till today. Now, what happened between the 1950s and today? So post-World War II, and during World War II, beef was kind of rationed, and so the alternative proteins were being offered. I mean, people are eating squab. What do you call it? Pigeons?
Oh, is that what you call that meat?
Squab, yeah, and other creatures. And then chicken was being marketed as well, of course. But like we just discussed, these were tiny birds, 2 to 3 pound birds at 4 months of age. Can we do something about that? So during the 1950s, this is actually very cool. I didn't know this until I was researching this. They had a Chicken of Tomorrow contest.
Oh,
the Chicken of Tomorrow! It even sounds like something from the 50s.
Encouraging.
Like the UFO. The Chicken of Tomorrow! Act now if you can create a better chicken, then you're going to win. And you'd win some special accolades and prizes back then. So the idea with the Chicken Tomorrow contest was to increase the production of the broiler lines. And by the 1960s, the broilers reached their larger size. So the 60s and 70s, we saw this explosion in marketing for chicken meat, the lean meat. There was a push in there for this alternate meat. I wouldn't say alternate meat, but it was heavily marketed during the 60s and 70s as they were starting production. Production was increasing, and they could reinvest. So there's an explosion there. The exponential climb was through the 70s and 90s, where these birds had a dramatically improved feed conversion rate. So that's part of selective breeding with these animals. It wasn't just can we get them bigger, but you're optimizing their metabolic production. So how much can we, because it's all costs. So if you're raising one chicken, it's not a big deal. But if you're raising, I think it's 3 billion chickens, the pennies add up.
Big buildings.
Yeah, so you're trying to optimize these animals as much as possible. So today, the animals, I guess, metabolically or physiologically reaching a plateau. They're not going to be able to squeeze much more growth and feed efficiency out of these birds without some mutant genetic CRISPR technology being applied, which that's always possible. I don't really see that happening. Because these lines, they're very precise and they're very cautious with keeping them.
The breeding lines.
The breeding lines, the broiler lines they have, they spend a long time, thousands and thousands of these varieties going through to get these things optimally. So we saw all this stuff happening in this short order of time. Okay, that was just an opening. I wanted to give you guys some information about broilers because it was the thumbnail. These animals have really increased. People love to say exponentially, but mathematically speaking, it wasn't exponential. But they did grow significantly. They tripled in production over the last 75 years, which is significant. All right. We're going to talk about the history of the chickens, domestication, and the broilers versus the heritage breeds, as well as the two primary commercial lines. I should have mentioned that before. It's the Cobb 500 and what is the other one? The Ross, that's right, Cobb and Ross. Cobb 500 and Ross 308. These are two primary breeder lines of broiler chickens that you're going to find in commercial lines. Oh, wow. Can I get them? No, you can't. You can't buy them. So the Ross and the Cobb birds, that they're very, they're like intellectual property. The way they were bred, kind of like GMO corn manufacturers. They protect their line, their breed line of critters.
Yeah.
The same with the Ross and the Cobb variety of broilers. They're industry specific, and if you want to raise them, it's usually done with strict contractual agreements.
Oh.
If I may tell you the truth. Yeah, it was really actually fascinating. I don't know if I mentioned this in my main outline, but I'm going to tell you now because this is something to you guys, which I think you'll find interesting. The birds, when you're thinking of growing these birds in these breeding programs, they were not only breeding, particularly in the 60s and 70s, where they integrated all their logistics. They weren't just breeding the animal. They were considering the integration of the feed platforms, distribution, and all the logistics. So they were co-developed. Like my bird's going to be developed so it's going to fit best with my efficient feed operation. Again, not a fan of these animals. I don't eat them, but it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's sold everywhere.
You mean these animals that are grown on these large scale facilities?
Yeah, I'm not eating those. So. But we should know about it because efficiency, centralization, and what do you call it? All of these processes are leading toward, I guess, optimal capital return, and still today. Okay, interesting stuff. We'll talk about that later. So, if you guys, I know this is not the most fabulous topic. I don't think because it's not. I like teaching the academic stuff, and this isn't too sciencey. Some of it is. But if you guys,
this is practical.
It is
Because people want to know about growing their own food, and with the some people don't have very much space, and these birds can be excellent to grow. Even if you're growing a couple of them, you could have 2, 3, 4. If you don't have much space at all, or people have space to have a tractor and tractor them around and have a good bit of them, or do them in batches.
Birds.
They're great. Yeah, they're great to have.
Well, we're going to talk about that. What was I going to say? These birds, like the development of these specialized lines, they were multiple. So they take pure line birds. What's the Cornish cross? The Cornish and the Plymouth. Is that right?
Maybe.
Why the hell? I forget
I
this.
don't remember. It's been a while since I looked at that.
Sounds stupid. But yeah, they take these pure line breeds and they cross them, and you're getting desired results. You guys are familiar with selective breeding until the offspring are producing the traits you want, and you're selecting them to breed. Anyway, they have strict guarded properties or guarded intellectual properties as far as these breed lines go. All right.
Sorry, it's late. It's the end of the day for us, so sorry, excuse me.
Okay, so that was just an intro. Now we're getting into, I'll try to keep this part short because the intro is actually the interesting stuff. I think a lot of people are curious about the growth and production of these critters.
Yeah.
Like, where do they come from? We take for granted, like you go to the grocery store and you see chickens everywhere, but it took a lot of work to get to the point where you can buy chicken for $1 a pound or $2 a pound. If you actually consider what's happening Imagine raising heritage breed birds on your own property. How much per pound? What's a heritage breed bird? Once it's butchered, you get 3-4 pounds maybe out of it.
Yeah, ideally, like I'm familiar with the
Maybe
black
5.
ocelops.
Yeah, they're a little bigger.
They should be like around 6 pounds, but it just depends on if you've got a good line, if you got a good breeder, like your birds are good stock to begin with. That if they're not, then yes, those lower numbers. Are
And
typical.
2, there's something called, this is a very eloquent and desirable food sounding term, carcass yield. So carcass yield, which means what? How much usable meat is coming off an animal after it's processed. So if it's an 8-pound bird, you might have a carcass yield of what? 6 pounds, 5 pounds. So carcass yield in these broilers is around 65 to 75% in the broilers. But that's because they have those huge pectoral muscles, those breast meat.
Yeah, they're very full. The other breeds. I mean, if it's a breed that's meant, a heritage breed that's meant to be for, the rooster's meant for meat, and the hen's meant for egg laying, but also for processing once they're out of their egg laying stage. They are bred to be proportionately, nice to have in the oven and such. But yeah, they're not anything compared to these broiler birds.
Yes, indeed. Now, where did the broiler come from? Well, let's go back in history. Let's go about 9,500 years.
Wow.
So all of our domesticated chickens come from one wild cousin, Gallus gallus. That's a Latin name. The red jungle fowl. Where are they located? Indonesia. Indonesian red jungle fowl. Looks like a rooster.
Where?
It's got a
Really?
long tail.
Wow. Lots of predators there.
Yeah, they're smaller birds, like 3-pound birds. They're ground dwellers. So anywho, our domestic birds are Gallus gallus domesticus. When you domesticate it, you call it domesticus. Although they didn't do it with the Curtonics. They're not Curtonics domesticus. They're Japonica. Maybe because they were domesticated in Japan. Anyway, I don't know. Anyway, moving on. So Gallus gallus, the wild jungle fowl, is the root of all of our chickens. Even the small little puffy breeds, the handheld ones, with their very docile temperament. They all trace their genetic lineage back to their granddaddy out there in Indonesia, who's still rolling around. They're not extinct. They're still out there.
And to be clear, the wild versions, they are different in the sense of their behavior and such,
yes,
because obviously otherwise they'd be eaten. So they are not quite tame or calm.
Oh, the domesticated quail. So everybody's like, well, how old are quail? Quail were domesticated about 2,000 years ago in Asia. So what is going on with the selective breeding? You guys, I think the simplest way to understand that is, we're all familiar with evolution, but it's like human-directed evolution.
Yeah, you're seeing
evolving traits in an animal.
Yeah, you're observing traits, and you can get, you can get very detailed in understanding the genetic makeup of the birds, especially through breeding. How do you want to say it? Like projects where you're breeding different birds together to see what pops out, and then you can really figure out what that breeding pair only produces and what very recessive
that's
traits.
A popular endeavor, either a hobby or even people do professionally.
It's interesting, it's fun.
Within the chicken community.
Yeah, and the quail, but so you're observing these traits that you want and don't want, and then you're obviously breeding them to like other birds that are like the same that, but also making sure that the line doesn't get too tight and defects don't pop up.
So, interesting piece of information here, ladies and gentlemen, kids at home. Why do we like chickens if we're not eating them? They lay a lot of eggs, right? I'm going to talk about this a little bit. So the egg-laying trait that a chicken have is not what the red jungle fowl has. In fact, continual year-round egg-laying you're only going to see in domesticated animals. Okay, they can lay year-round. They're domesticated to do so. Even with photoperiodicity, or the way they behave according to the light, as long as there's light available, they'll continue laying because it's instigated by hormones. As long as that light is available for 16 to 18 hours a day, they lay. Wild birds don't do this. They don't lay eggs every day. They lay clutches. They'll lay clutches. And what is a clutch of eggs?
So, their instincts is to lay, each day they'll lay an egg. And you'll see this with, other domesticated poultry that we have. They'll lay an egg a day, and then once they are done with however many eggs that they want to have, then they sit. And they're sitting on them with the purpose of hatching them. Our chickens, we take their egg away from them daily so they keep laying. But once they decide they're going to sit on that, they go broody. And their hormones and stuff are altering, and then they're in mama, stage.
Yeah.
So and then she's not laying any eggs while she's broody. So that's the whole duration of sitting on the eggs and hatching the eggs and then raising the babies. So that would instigate that behavior as well.
Katie said, but if you can make a buck, who cares about the animal's health and life experience? Sarcasm, I guess.
Aww,
She's being sarcastic.
Right.
And if you don't have space, then get quail. Oh,
Yeah.
for sure.
For sure, yeah, they're like the mini broilers.
Yeah, gosh.
Except their frame and body structure is more integrity to it, because they're not like very, very heavy, but they're very plump.
Yeah, I'm pretty, I like being transparent about stuff because I'm a fact-based person. I'm a objectivist. I like objective truth, so I try to give objective truth. But the quail, yeah, definitely satisfy food production in a small need, especially if you want to do that. But it really comes down to the fundamental question. Do you want to do anything? A lot of people don't want to do anything. They're like, no, I go to the store. And that's fine.
Yeah.
But a lot of people want to endeavor to raise stuff. Hey, Verna's here. Hi, hon.
Hey, Verna.
What was I yakking about? Egg laying. So yeah, the domesticated birds have been selectively bred because, hey, the natives notice, what's this red junkelfeld doing? It's laying these eggs. Mm-hmm. Catch one. We're going to catch one, and now we'll have eggs 2 or 3 times a year. And they breed them, and they're like, oh, this red junkelfowl's laying eggs 4 or 5 times a year. You get the picture. And over time, we now have chickens that are laying 300 eggs a year.
Yeah, I wonder how quick they changed as far as laying the egg every day, because the eggs were probably being taken away from them. Disrupting that whole natural mama cycle.
Yeah, well,
It's
I think considering this, and I'm really going on a tangent on this one thing about egg laying, but think of it like dogs. They all come from what, saber-toothed tigers?
Dogs?
Yeah, the wolves. So they all come from the wolves.
Kitties.
But yet you have basset hounds that are lazy with floppy ears, and Chihuahua dogs. But they all came from the Canis lupus, and this is Canis domesticus, right? Is that what it is? I don't know. It's Latin. So they came from the Canis lupus. Is it right? Canis lupus? I forget. Anyway, it came from the old world wolves, and they were selectively bred for whatever reason to become what they are today. Same with the domesticated birds.
Yeah.
And their various colors, patterns, behaviors, that's correct. Physiological change in the neuroanatomy and their brain anatomy is allowing new behaviors. Okay, cool. So what am I yapping about next? All right, anatomy and key structures, the parts that are doing the job. Body size and skeleton, brain and nervous system, musculature and organs, and we're going to talk about that. So body size and skeleton. What do we know about, and I'm just going to talk about the broilers, since we were discussing that. Maybe the little silkies too. So broiler, let's go with our template for perfect chicken. And the template for perfect chicken is red junglefowl, the original. I mean, it is. It was designed for its environment. And I usually talk about feeding an animal, understanding its innate ancestral anatomy and physiology and its needs therein, which is the red junglefowl. So we're going from the template for perfect chicken, which is red junglefowl, to human-directed chicken that facilitates human needs. And in this case, it's that big, fat, 13-pound broiler waddling out of the chicken patch house. That skeleton, although adapted for those 13 pounds...
Yeah, the skeletal system, it is larger, but it's
what's the problem? Yeah. So the body size and the skeleton. The broilers, modern broilers aren't really supposed to be living past those 10 weeks or so.
Yeah, if you're feeding them like you should be feeding a broiler.
Why is this? Why are they only living so short of a time? Because their musculature, the hypertrophy, it's like when you get jacked up, the growth of muscles and their body growing is not suited for their organs or their skeletal system. Their skeletal system, you notice the strain on the joints and the legs. It's like if a human being weighs 500 or 600 pounds. It's very disproportionate to what they're designed to carry, and so it becomes a strain and stress on them.
Yeah.
So these birds are strictly being raised as meat-producing birds. And every once in a while, you hear somebody on the internet whining about they got a pet meat broiler and they want to keep it alive forever.
Usually those people didn't realize it was a broiler. But yeah, then they have to put it on a strict diet, and it's a lot of work. And some of them, they can get them to live, for a little while, for a couple of years even, because they restrict their diet. Otherwise, they will overeat.
Yeah, but technically it's not a natural animal. It's a hybridized, selectively bred animal. I got an argument once with an internet guy. He said, everything's genetically modified now. And I got his point. And people were giving him a hard time because he was using the wrong language. The language was being used wrong. I guess what he meant was everything is artificially manipulated or bred to show a trait. When we talk about genetic manipulation, we're really referring to something done in a lab where specific genes are physically being altered. So yeah, all of our food, every single vegetable we eat is not its ancestral variety, except for the coconut.
Is that so?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I did a big research thing on this. I think there might be one other, besides wild foraged berries and vegetables. The only wild food, the only wild food you can get in the grocery really is a coconut.
Wow.
They haven't been selectively bred. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it is.
So all the other stuff is. Like corn was a grass. Strawberry was a little white thing. Watermelon was a inedible ball. So everything's thankfully been selectively bred, including our beloved chickens. So yeah, the body mass is not really conducive to their skeletal health and their skeletal structure. So it will deteriorate. And what are the problems we see with them?
Yeah, so problems once they're getting older and they're close to processing age, issues. It's kind of like big dog syndrome. The organs can start to strain and stress, and they could have, potentially organ failure. But you might end up with fractured legs, fractured bones. You could have torn muscles in their legs. And it's just hard. It's a lot of pressure on their joints to walk. It's like a very, like a person, a human that's has a lot of weight on them. It's strenuous to walk, and they'll pant. It's, tedious on their heart. So those are all potential things. Yeah, so if you're raising them for meat, then, they are designed to be processed.
Genetic manipulation is more natural. The other way is when they put genes in from other things that are not related to the product of chimeric mixing.
Yeah.
So brain and nervous system. So the interesting thing about the chickens, so they do physiologically have change in the brain. Domesticated chicken. If you notice, you can go up and pet them.
Yes, they are friendlier.
So why is this? Well,
as opposed to them running in terror.
Well, yeah, the wild jungle fowl, template for chicken, is designed to not get eaten. It's facilitating the three things. I always go back to three things: breed, eat, and not get killed. So in the not get killed department, the wild jungle fowl has a more active amygdala, part of the brain, which recognizes threat. It's threat assessment. We have that as well. In fact, there's been interesting study in neural damage, when there's bilateral damage within the amygdala. People don't react to threat. So when we see something on the ground, a stick or a dust ball, we don't consciously think of it, but we react to it. So, that stick's a snake, or that ball's a spider, and we get scared, and then we process it. So we have this threat assessment mechanism. The bird has that. So the red jungle fowl in his brain, designed for awareness in his environment, well, that's diminished in the domestication. We don't want them being skittish from us all the time, and they don't need to be because they're in an artificial environment. They're not wild foraging for the most part. So that part of the brain is physiologically adapted and changed to their new chicken environment, where they have humans around them. Same with like the wild dogs. They're not attacking you. You go to pet your dog, he's not. He's not on guard like that. Although I think the wild dogs, I think you can tame anything. I'm a guy who wants to pick up every animal and tame it. I bet you I could tame the wild wolf. I'm like, come here, Wolfie.
If you get it young enough.
Yeah. So, okay, cool. Body size and skeleton, not the best. Brain and nervous system. The brain developed for less threat assessment and also social structure and interaction with human too. Social interaction with other birds.
Mm-hmm.
You see that with domesticated chicken.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want to finish
Yeah, they
up.
live in a flock rather than solitary.
Oh, and here's an interesting thing. The musculature on the broilers. About 20% of its body weight is just in that breast.
Wow.
Remember when I was talking about carcass yield? Carcass yield.
Right.
So why the broilers have such a nice carcass yield? Well, 20% of the carcass is just pure protein in the breast
Mm.
that they've been bred for.
Mm-hmm.
So, questions, comments? Do you guys have any questions or comments? You can give me a what do you call it? What's a screwball question? It's a question you wouldn't expect. Well, you can give me any kind of question. I may be able to answer it.
Are there any comments there? I can't tell from here.
Another little thing, not really that important. Domesticated hens have a more prominent comb, whereas the red jungle fowl does not. All right, cool. So we talked about anatomy and some of the key structures and stuff doing the job in the broiler. Some of them are advantageous, at least if you're trying to eat them.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, I think the developments in the broiler breeds that we have don't do anything for the quality of life for a bird. I mean, they're there to be butchered at 8 to 10 weeks because their health is really at jeopardy.
Yeah.
And just like a human, if you were eating nonstop, you're like 300 pounds, 400 pounds, 500 pounds, your health is diminishing and your organs are being stressed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how we got into this world where people are like, hey, 600 pounds, it's pretty cool. Like, not really.
Yeah.
You're stressing those organs. I mean, not good for the chicken because the chicken is not going to be a pet. It's not living. In
Right.
fact, people are like, oh, I'll just get some broilers and breed them. They're not going to live that long.
No.
Not healthy anyway. You're going to have broken legs. Their legs
Mhm.
are very susceptible to breaking
Mm-hmm.
and displacing joints because of that weight. It's not designed for that carriage.
Right.
So you really have to be careful. I want to talk about care and maintenance of these birds shortly. How do the parts work? I don't want to talk about this too much. The growth acceleration. So the growth acceleration, which I briefly discussed at the beginning of this, which was really, really interesting, where we had these 1 to 3 or 2 to 3 pound birds back in the 50s, but through selective breeding, and this is with the industrial birds, gaining up to 8, 9, 12 pounds at their butcher weight at 6 to 8 weeks. So the stuff that the commercial breeders are butchering, the Cobbs and the Rob, is that what it is? Cobb 308, Cobb 500, and I keep losing my
Funny.
notes.
It's
The
funny
Ross
names.
308, I said it
They're
wrong.
not very romantic sounding.
So the Cobb 500 and Ross 308 are the dominant broiler breeds. And those numbers, by the way, they're nothing special. They're just variant designations, not like secret code. So somebody's like, wow, they sure do produce some good birds over there at Tyson Farm. I think that's the Rob variety. I want to buy some. Well, you can't, but you can get the generic version, which are the broilers, the Cornish crosses that a lot of people breed. There are other meat birds like, what are they, the Red Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
They grow a little slower.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Yeah, there's a few different types.
and there's always reasons for raising a slower growing meat bird if that's something you want to do versus these really fast growing meat birds.
Yeah, the Red Rangers, they tend to move around a lot more, which some people like.
I have no experience with them personally.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they just take a couple extra weeks. But yeah, they move around more. And the Cornish cross, they tend to just plop down and rest. And then the way we raise them is we have them in a space, a big open area where we encourage them to move around. I spread out their food. I put their food in one area and the water in the opposite area. Within reason, and then they can move around, and they don't plop. Some people don't like. Some people, the way they raise them, they'll end up the breast skin can get messy.
And get infected.
Yeah,
So because that's a very thin piece of skin, and it can cut and it can get infected.
So yeah,
they are susceptible to those infections and cuts and abrasions,
so
especially in the rocky soils. Sorry.
People like to tractor them around. Well, they'll move them, use fresh grass as needed, and then they're on. They're not on soiled stuff. But yeah, that's the idea that we do. We make sure they're moving around and not getting too lazy.
All right, cool. So, yeah, because I'm about to talk about all that stuff again. But I'll try to eliminate what we discussed. Relevance to the bird's life. So I'm going to move on and talk about relevance to the bird's life. And I mean the relevance of the domestication. What has the domestication done? So obviously they're less fearful. They're more social. They're integrating with other birds. And you can integrate other birds with them, other bird varieties or breeds. You can integrate different breeds. They're not going to be as territorial or as aggressive, and certainly not as skittish. So they have a greater social tolerance, which is good. We like social birds. We like them not attacking each other. And every once in a while you may get an aggressive animal, and people are like, what do I do with my aggressive rooster? 9 times out of 10, somebody's like, put him in a pot. But that may not be exactly necessary, especially if you like the bird. It could be something.
Yeah, you can, figure something else out.
You can work with the animal. Yeah. It's possible to do that. It's not necessarily he has a bad disposition due to genetics. Likely,
it might not be genetics. It could just be personality or just, whatever.
Physiological. This is interesting. And we don't really think about it because we don't deal with the red jungle fowl. They have higher metabolic costs or higher food costs. I mean, that would make sense because they're laying eggs every day. Chickens.
Yes.
Domesticated chickens.
You're talking about layers.
Yeah, they're laying
broilers.
eggs every day.
Like, they don't lay eggs.
Well, and the broilers are just growing. I mean, they're
producing in some way.
They're an anomaly. They're much different than any other breed, the broilers, because they're putting on so much weight compared to
and they're using the energy. They're using energy to.
And they have a high feed conversion rate, so it should be like 1.7 pounds of food in a Cornish cross will yield 1 pound of live weight.
Wow.
Not carcass weight, which is your butchered weight, live weight. So there's live weight and meat yield. If you look at that chart I put in the description of this video, I give you the FCR, feed conversion ratio, for I think quail, broilers, and heritage breed. I think one of the heritage breeds. And it discusses that. So the meat yield is really what's important to people. And if you're really sciencey, you can track all that. You can say, oh, I bet I bought 400 pounds of feed for this amount of animals, and after butchering, I produced this much meat. You probably don't even care about live weight. I mean, you do, but you're not eating guts and feathers.
Right.
Unless you're a raccoon. But I don't think we have any raccoons watching. So, yeah. So if you're tracking your feed purchases when you're raising your meat broiler birds, and then get, your butcher weight, you'll have a better idea, like how much money was spent on feed per pound of meat. So you can say, oh, this meat cost me $1.27.5 per pound. I don't know why I said 0.5. Or this meat cost me whatever it was per pound to produce the amount of birds. And those, I'm telling you, man, these broilers, once they're butchered, it's like it's a ton of meat.
Yeah.
Because we'll go, what did we put, 18 last time?
I don't know.
16? There was a bunch of them. I was like, oh my Lord. It's like 2 giant chests full of meat. So.
Yeah.
Okay, nutrition and health. I think we discussed feed. Oh, I was just talking about that. Feed efficiency and the feed conversion ratios. Oh, cool. I can move into my closing, the practical application of this information. And it really has to do with, I think, setup and logistics of taking care of broilers. We discussed this on another video before. We discussed Cornish crosses. So with the broilers, they're large growing, they're hot birds. They're not going to want to walk up long, steep ramps. Can you imagine if you had to put them on ramps?
No, yeah, they're not going to do that.
You're going to have to lift each chicken one by one and set them in an elevated coop if that's
And
your
you
housing.
do have to, if you're doing that, you have to be gentle with putting them in because
You can't toss them because they'll break.
Get injured. Yes.
You have to be very careful with them. So when we house our corn crosses, they have a ground level little chicken patch house.
And they walk right into
they
it.
They waddle into it.
Yes, they do waddle.
They waddle. So they have a ground level. So one of the considerations is housing. That's going to be important. Clean out because they're pretty filthy.
Yeah, and also time of year, depending on where you are, of when you raise them. And because you're considering how long you're going to raise them, people raise them for different variations of time. We like doing big, 10 weeks because when we process them, we have them. Some people like just 6 weeks. So it just depends on the size of bird you want, but you have to consider the temperature, the season. Once they're getting older, bigger in their weight, then heat is really difficult for them. It's just very difficult because they're hot already. They're growing. They just don't handle heat well. So you have to make sure that you have enough shade, ventilation.
You're not raising them in the middle of July.
Yeah, well, and I mean, people can. It's just as long as you're providing shade and the housing needs to be very ventilated. You don't want them to overheat in there or spacious. Depends on what your setup is. But yeah, it's not the same as raising like a layer.
Yeah, so consider like the chickens already have high body temperature, about 104 degrees, and then these broilers have a high metabolic cost. They're processing food all day. They're converting food into meat. That's their job. That's really what they are. It's just a meat-making machine. They eat and they turn it into meat. And they're doing this. And that produces more heat and waste product, etc. And they're breathing and respirating more. So that's why the ventilation is important. And they still have the same interior structure. They still have proportional lungs, heart, liver and these tissues as the other domesticated birds do, but they're jammed inside of this meat mountain. So they're being strained. It's being strained on them. So it's good to be cognizant of that. Like, again, you're raising meat birds for a short time, but you should be aware of the delicate nature of their physiology in relationship to their big body size.
They're fine when they're young. They're actually quite athletic. They run around and they play, but once they hit like the 6 weeks, they're getting pretty plump.
Yeah, like when they're little chick. I'm gonna be a baseball player. No, you're not. You just wait a few weeks. You're gonna be way overweight, and they do. They get overweight.
But they are pleasant birds. They're sweet tempered in general.
Yeah, they're nice animals. They're not aggressive. What are they gonna do? Waddle over to you?
They're very different.
I think they understand. They're not picking fights. Yeah, they're pretty docile, but they do have the needs that you got to be aware of before you set them up. Look at the logistics. And the cool thing is they don't take a lot of space because they're not going all over the place. Remember the first batch we had in that small patch,
right?
And
so
they were fine.
If you have them, whatever your setup, just make sure you're keeping in mind maintenance of manure. If you're tractoring them around and changing the space, the ground that they're on, then that's a maintenance method. If you have them stationary and the space is not a large green grass field, you can have them in a smaller space. You can do a deep litter bedding system of using like untreated mulch. And then just putting new layers of mulch on and churning it and such. You can definitely do that. But we don't advise keeping them in a stationary space without maintenance of the ground because, like Christopher mentioned earlier, they do eliminate quite often and a lot. And that will deteriorate their health, their well-being, because that's demoralizing to be laying around in something like that. And then also you're going to have smell to deal with as well.
I always wondered how the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles handled that. They lived in a sewer.
I guess they were adjusted.
Yeah, but what she said.
Yeah, so they're easy to raise, but you do need to make a plan. And they, as chicks, their body grows way faster than their feathers do. So if you're getting them end of winter, early spring. You know, they grow big. They're like, you want them out of the brooder in like 2 weeks. They're just so big. But you have to keep in mind, can you provide heat in a larger space in a barn or outside somewhere? Because their feathers take a little bit of time to catch up to their growth. So
yeah, we found that they're good springtime, late summertime birds.
yeah, I'm a big fan of
Early spring.
Early spring, and
Before it
having
gets hot.
them finished growing, maybe even before the start of summer for us personally, because then. It's not hot. There's no flies. It's just they're pleasant. Everything's fresh. Yeah.
You're not like exhausted yet because it's spring.
Yes, that's true. October comes around and us homesteaders, farmers are just like wiped. We're beat in October, just tired of all the constant tending and fixing and this and that. Yep.
In my next life, I'm being a surfboard tester.
Sounds like vacation.
Yeah, but it's a lot of work.
So yeah,
so in the beginning of spring, it's nice to have that.
Plan when you're gonna have them and like the weather that you're gonna experience, the season that you're gonna experience during their growth, and then at their processing time, whether you are processing them or if you're sending them off to be processed somewhere. You know, you want to consider the whole thing.
Okay, cool. A brief recap before I go. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in here. And if you're a new person, subscribe here. We do these weeklies every week. I guess what I call weekly educational things. And I'm more into applicable information. I can't stand the internet with its diversionary time wasting. So I like to have like subjects that are applicable, practical, and can start conversation or initiate somebody into doing something or investigating that. Anyway, in conclusion, chickens were starting the domestication process 9,500 years ago. The potato, 20,000 years ago.
Wow.
I like potatoes. But about 9,500 years ago. So a long, long, long time. These are ancient critters, really. And we gathered this information from the historical record, written whatnots. And I guess they may even have some cave etchings of chickens. But they've been domesticated for quite a long time. What my focus here was kind of on the growth of the broiler meat and the feed conversion over the last 50, 60, or 70 years, which has been really phenomenal. And to also make sure people understand it wasn't just a chicken being bred, but they were being bred in an integration of a system. So a system was being created. It wasn't just grow big chicken. It was whatever we're growing, we want to make sure it's going to eat this type of feed. It's going to grow from that. This is a cheap kind of feed. We can have this system set up where the feed is very efficiently shipped in and we can rotate it out like efficiency to where we are today. And yeah, you can get your own giant meat birds any time of year, really. It's kind of interesting. And
yeah, I mean, you don't have to have a big, acreaged farm. We have a friend of ours. He lives in Philadelphia, and he has a plot of land, but he does not have a lot of space. And I was like, you could get like 2 or 3 of these and just move them around on your grass, and they're like the size of a basketball. If you grow them out to 10 weeks, that's a lot of meat.
3 basketballs.
Yeah, and he did. He loved it. He
did?
bought them, and he was very excited about the meat yield.
I thought he was. That's cool. Yeah. All right. Well, I guess everybody split. It's 9:51 p.m. It's not trash day 5 when we got a day off.
The holiday. Yeah. Changed the day.
All right. I will see you guys. I have to walk behind this phone to turn it off.
All right. Bye, everyone. Thanks for watching. See you next time.